All right. So since I went a little too quick there and forgot to start recording, we're using the useSelector hook to replace the map state to props and the connect function. So useSelector comes in from React Redux, same place connect comes from. All right, we have that in. Now we're going to go ahead and create our const variable. We can see that it's just after the car, kind of like how we have props car here. So let's name our const car so we don't have to write a whole lot of code. We write a lot. And we're going to set that equal to the useSelector hook. And in here, we're going to pass a state parameter. And what it's going to return is that state object with the car key. So whatever's in car is what we want. So we'll comment this out. We're just going to make it a normal export default. Export default the header. Okay, so now the header's coming back out. Now it's going to start yelling at me that it can't find props. Well, that's because we don't have props anymore. So we're just going to eliminate the props off of everything again because we're getting it from our hook directly into the component. Red arrows are starting to go away. One more left. And we're back. And now we can go ahead and get rid of this. And you guys see how this kind of makes your components a lot easier to handle. You don't have Redux above and below it and going everywhere. You're basically calling it like one hook, like useState, and it's just there. So we have that done. That's the header. Let's go ahead and check our total. That's our last one. And that one is also connected. So let's go ahead and bring it into here as well. Let's get our state everywhere we need it. Remember, and useSelector, and this is repetitive because it is at the moment. We're basically just replacing anywhere we have connect with the useSelector hook. And we're going to make this, looks like it's after the car. So it's like props.state.car. So we'll just call it state, just so we got less code to write. That's going to equal useSelector. And a little star there, and a state. And that's just going to return the whole state object. So we have that. Let's go ahead and break it again. Let's get rid of this export default and just export our regular function or functional component, which is called total. And it's going to yell us about the props again. So let's get rid of the props. Props. Am I missing more props? Is that the end of the props? All right, that's the end of the props. All right, so we're back going. We don't need this anymore. We just got rid of half of that file with hooks, like this whole lower half. And we've made it through all of our components. So now this whole application is gathering its state from the useSelector hook rather than with connect and map state to props. So our next step was going to be the useReducer hook. Now useReducer, or I'm not useReducer, the useDispatch hook. So the useDispatch hook, what it does is it allows you to call dispatch to your reducer multiple times in a component, which with old Redux wasn't really possible without the separate actions file and the use of thunk. That's like thunk's main objective with Redux. It allows you to call dispatch multiple times, gives you that asynchronous calling. And dispatch with the useDispatch hook, you can create that same function, like writing a useEffect hook for an API call, and not even need the actions file other than to store your strings for your dispatch calls. So let's start running some useDispatch in here. So we will go, you see I got an action in here of add feature and a remove feature action. I wasn't very good with the naming, add feature, remove feat. It's like you're cutting off your feet, right? So let's start with app, see if it's needed anywhere here. So originally the way this app was set up is it had these functions here to where they wanted you to, run your dispatch all the way here, then you still have to pass this props. And you can see where they're being added here on the map dispatch to props. That's kind of defeats the purpose of not having to drill props using Redux. So what we're gonna do is we don't need this here. And I got rid of connect already. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna go find out where those go. Added features gets the remove feature function. So let's go to added features. Are we passing that as a prop? Oh, do we miss one here? Why do I have props.state here? Oh. Oh, that's because we haven't added any yet. That was gonna break when we went to do it. So let's get rid of that. All right, do we have? Oh, it takes in remove item into the added feature component. So that's drilled another level down. So if we go to add feature, oh, here's our on click where we're actually calling that. So now we don't have to even do that. So we're gonna go ahead and import use dispatch. And we're gonna get that from React Redux. So if you guys look, I just went all the way down into, I use an equal sign. Into where the actual on-click function is gonna be called for this. Unexpected token of what? Oh, from. Full of typos today. So we got use dispatch there. And all you have to do to use this is literally set up a const called dispatch. And we're going to set that equal to the use dispatch hook and invoke it. So now we have this dispatch const. And the only other thing I would suggest is setting your strings for your cases to variable names and getting them from the actions. So if we go into our actions, we're removing on a feature in here. So let's check our action. And we're exporting a const called remove feature. So let's go grab that. We're gonna import this. That way we don't have to worry about typos. And I'm gonna totally copy it too, just to be sure. So we're gonna import that as well. Import this from /actions and that's the remove feature. All right, so we have that. So in here where we have this props.remove item, we're not going to have that. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know. I just heard him beep and I was like, wow, I think my headset just shut off. That's kind of strange. This thing's supposed to last 24 hours. Figure that out. All right. So, okay, where I left off is I brought my action in, just my action string. So my string naming stays consistent and the use dispatch hook. And I got rid of this remove item that was drilled down 2 levels from app where they originally had this function set up to dispatch this action. And instead of running this whole function right here that returns the type and the payload of the input, we're going to do that right from where we are, right in here with the dispatch hook. So we're just going to call dispatch. That hook, it takes in the object, and this is your dispatch object. It takes in a type. That's going to be the remove feature. If I can type remove feature. All right, and it's going to take in a payload, the pat load. And the payload is going to be, what did we say? It was props dot, I just erased it, props dot feature is the payload. So we have that. Now let's see, this is the remove feature. So add should still work. Oh, no, wait, no, we got rid of that. Never mind. So let's go, before we go any further, let's fix the add one. So let's go into the additional features. We're passing that as a prop to the feature, and here we have another on-click. So same thing, we're going to import our use dispatch from React Redux. All right, we're going to give that a name, const dispatch equals use dispatch invoked. And then all we got to do is modify our on-click here. Props.feature. We're going to get rid of all this right here. We're just going to call dispatch. And we have to get our object still. So we got to import, what's it called? The add feature. Add feature. Look, I actually named something right. Action slash add feature. All right, so we have that now. So let's dispatch our type. Add feature. This is going to run off the screen on me a little bit. Our payload is going to be the props.feature. And the only reason we're still using props here is because this is a mapped component. So you're going to find that that's about the only place you guys are going to start passing props, unless it's something real simple. Is anytime you map over and you return multiple copies of a component, you're going to want to pass it props as it changes rather than trying to select it individually from global state somehow. So this might work now. Let's try it. Oh, look, it works. Oh, wow. Everything's going. We're on dispatch hooks. So now in our actions, we don't need this anymore. We don't need that function. In our remove one, we don't need this anymore. So now I'm looking at, I've got two separate files that all they do is export a variable that contains a string. So you could bunch these up into an actions file, just call it actions, and have just the strings stored there that activate different things in your reducer, and that's all you need. Everything else is handled by the hooks. So in app.js, we don't need dispatch to props anymore. We can get rid of that. We don't need these passed in anymore. And we don't need any of this. I just deleted a lot of code and it still works. Look at all that commented out. That was all stuff that we had, and we fixed it with just two hooks. Oh, including these imports. These are not required anymore either. So any questions to this point? And you guys are all sitting there, no cameras and muted. I feel like I'm by myself. Oh, there's Robert. There's a friendly face. What's up?
All right, I'll turn my camera on for you. So I did have a quick question. Could you go over again the part where you had to use props? Where was that? That was in additional features, right? We couldn't get rid of props there.
Where we don't get rid of props there? Yeah, I definitely can go over that. Yeah. So where we were was that we were in the, we'll call it the added feature because I think it takes in a prop too. Yeah, you see how this still has the props.feature.name and we didn't get rid of that? That's because this is a mapped component. So if you go to its parent, you can see we're calling a features.map and we're sending it in an item and we're looping over this. So you want to pass it props, almost like no matter what. Other than this one's not needed anymore. Because that prop's it's going to change with each iteration of that map. Your data is going to be constantly changing. So as you're mapping over this, you're going to send the props to render that different data for each part of the loop. So that's about the only point you're going to see where you're not going to eliminate props.
Okay, gotcha. I thought you were talking about like props.remove item. Like, wait, why wouldn't we remove props?
yeah, that's gone. So yeah, matter of fact, I can comment those out. The additional features one, I think, is here. Yeah, we don't need add item anymore. That's gone. Did I get rid of it in the child? Yeah, I erased that when I overwrote it with the dispatch. So that is like hooks in a nutshell for Redux. Makes it a lot easier to really, kind of navigate your components when okay, all I got to do is do an on-click. I got to run this connect. I got to put null in for map state to props. Then I got to import my dispatch action function in, sometimes even with that string as well. Then I got to call that function inside of there through the connect. It eliminates all that when you can just say, I just want to use dispatch, and I'm going to name it dispatch, and it's going to work. It's awesome.
Can you show us an async sort of situation here?
Sure can. I'm trying to think of how I want to. I could probably do it in a component with console logs right in this project. Let's go to app.js. Let's do something in here. I'm probably just going to display it in the console though. It's not going to show up anywhere else. Matter of fact, let me get rid of these console logs. Let me find them. Where does that say it's at? Yeah, Code Sandbox. It always every console log's on index 27 in Code Sandbox. You ever notice that? So where do I have? Okay, here's one. Let's stitch that. All right, and I think that might be the only one I have. Nope, this one. Just try and clean up the terminal a little bit. There isn't one here. Is there one here? Don't look like it in the header. Oh, I don't want to rename the header. I just want to click on it. And the total, yeah, there's one right there. All right, yeah, I'll definitely go over the way that you do not need Thunk anymore either. So let me look up an API here real quick. We'll probably just use recresin. I think I can get a list from that. Yeah, I think I can. So what we're gonna do is let me add a dependency in here for Axios, because we'll use an Axios call. So we have Axios, that's good, and that should be all we need. So here we're gonna bring in use effect, and we'll use effect to make our asynchronous call. Oh, and we're also gonna need from React Redux use dispatch. All right, so we got our use dispatch hook, and we're gonna pretend we're gonna write an endpoint call here, and we're just gonna console log the data as it goes through. So as you know,
essentially just calling dispatch multiple times, and that's all it is. Is that what it is?
That's exactly what it is.
Wow. Okay.
And if you think about it, that is the exact same thing that you do in your actions now with Thunk. That is Thunk's like only purpose.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the order, does the order matter at all? Probably not, but I'm just curious.
The order of the way you call them,
yeah.
You want to read it like a book, like top to bottom. That's the way that the function's going to fire, whether it's in your actions like it is now, or the way it's set it up in use effect. Like the use effect will.
Since it's asynchronous, I'm just wondering if the order matters, right? Because it's like one goes off, you don't know when it's going to return. It returns at some point in the future. So in other words, you could probably switch them around back.
Yeah, what makes it asynchronous, as far as in the scope of what we did, is we're getting the promises from Axios with the .then and the .catch. That's what makes it asynchronous, is using that. But it also makes it asynchronous for the fact that we're controlling every aspect of state that our app could be in. Think about some of the early projects when you hit a loading state in your app and you just stared at like a blank screen for a second with nothing happening, and all of a sudden stuff popped on the screen. That's not asynchronous application, I guess you could say. You always want the user to see some kind of interaction. So that's where that loading state comes in, and matching these multiple dispatches of changing different parts of that state to do different things in the app as it goes through its asynchronous call to the API. That makes sense?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. All right, well, I'll still lay it out anyway. So let's just, we'll set up our used dispatch first. And, oh, what am I doing? It's just going to be the use dispatch hook. And then we'll call use effect. Call it back. Oh, what happened there? And in here, let's immediately go put the empty dependency array in so we don't get in trouble. And in here, this is where we'll make our call. So in this, I like to write a separate function, but then just drop it in use effect. It tends to work a little better for me. But in this case, it's just gonna use this use effect function is gonna run when it mounts anyway, so it doesn't matter. But any other ones, you're gonna want to build in like a separate function and drop it in. So in here, we're just gonna call dispatch. And the first object we would dispatch would be like, I don't know, let's call it a type of loading as a string. And that would in turn have a payload of nothing. We're just going to dispatch that. And it's going to yell at me that it's got an empty dependency array, so we'll just watch dispatch. That's normally what the linter asks for anyway. All right, so we'll do that. Then we'll do the Axios. Axios.get. What are we going to get? We're going to get this guy. We're going to get the people that created RecRes. That sounds like a cool one. All right, so we do the get request. Then we're going to do a .then chain. This is the asynchronous part. So this is where the promises start kicking in, almost like async await. So nothing's going to happen until the Axios.get promise resolves. And it's either going to resolve in a success or an error, depending on whether it populates the .then or the .catch. So we're going
Yeah, my point is though, this returns immediately. The Axios returns immediately, and then at some point in the future, when the result comes, when the promise is fulfilled, that's when the callback gets called. Does that make sense? I think that's how I understand it.
Yeah. So basically, this is basically like your promise. All right. So it sends out that call, but in order for it to resolve the promise, it's got to fire off a .then, or some kind of success rate. You know what I'm trying to say? So like if this goes into a loading phase, like let's say we make this endpoint call and it takes a while, .then or .catch, neither one of them are going to fire. It's going to sit in its loading phase because this hasn't resolved yet.
Right, but because it's not blocking, meaning that whatever happens afterwards, after the Axios call, if you have another, let's say dispatch, that will get called right away, right? Let's say, I don't know, you want to display something else, maybe loading 2 or something. After the Axios, that will be displayed right away. And then at some point in the future, once the result comes back from the RecRes, right?
Yeah.
Then whatever you do in the then will be performed.
Correct. Yeah. So you're talking about this displays right away. Or are you talking about doing something like under here?
After the catch, something after the whole Axios call.
Yeah. That it'll pass by that. Yes.
That's
so
what I was saying. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, you could. Let's see how we could do that. We can see Axios. I've never really had to async await Axios.
You could have, let's say, first loading, and then at the bottom after that, waiting for RecRes or something like that. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I normally don't leave anything there. Like when I set them up, it's normally like you get the response, and then we'll just, at this point you would dispatch another call, and it'd be like I don't know, like a type. A type would be, just kind of like what we're talking, success, and it would have a payload of, I don't know, we'll call it the response.data. Data. Oh, what did I just do? Stop it. Me and my fat fingers are getting in trouble today. And then after that, I'd have a .catch as well, and you're talking about like after all this runs, so like .catch, and then like this had returned some kind of error, and we dispatch you know, the object with a type. Type would be, we'll call it error. Wow. Error and a payload that would be that error message. So what am I missing here? Did I forget something at the end of this?
Dispatches.
Oh, yeah. There we go. That's a little better. Why is this yelling at me? Oh, yeah. I never imported Axios. That's a good reason to yell at me. Gotcha. I brought it as a dependency, but I never imported it. From Axios. There we go. Now it's in there. Now you can't yell at me. So this kind of like is like an asynchronous use effect call here. But what you're saying is like something below here, like after the dot then and that catch. So when it fires off this loading,
Exactly.
yeah, it's just going, it'll fire this right away. Yep.
That's what I meant. Yep.
Yeah,
And this is what I was asking, does the order matter? But probably not, because they're all going to fire basically at the same time.
Yeah, it's not going to fire any one of these dispatches, but I'm trying to think of what you would put under here that would be relevant to this call to run.
Waiting for something, you know.
Well, I mean, if you don't put anything, it stays in this loading phase.
Yeah, well, I mean, it could be a third dispatch somewhere. I don't know. You want to show up on the site something? I don't know, like.
And I wonder if this yells at me if I do this. I'm just going to try it. Well, let me into async use effect. It's not.
Oh, interesting.
Like it. Yeah. I think that's got to be. Does that have to be a const function? No, it's a. Wait, I wonder what the error says.
Maybe the whole.
Why does it yell at me? Effect callbacks are synchronous to prevent race conditions, but the async function inside. Okay, so I'd have to write a separate function and async await that. So to accomplish what I think you're trying to do, we could do something like this. We could wrap all of this in. Let's wrap it in a function called. We'll call it. I don't know. Do fetch. That sounds like a good one. And we'll make this we'll just make this a function. Const do fetch equals, and then we'll give it my favorite fat arrow, and then we'll give it curly braces. We'll just erase this one, and we're gonna wrap the whole thing. So we just wrapped our whole Axios call in the do fetch, and then in
actually,
here
I was thinking you can actually fire off another Axios. That's a use case. That's a. And
okay, like if you want to run separate, fire them both off at the same time.
Yeah, and they will fire off at the same time.
Yep.
And then whichever returns the result first, then it's going to change the state locally. We'll do its dispatch, and that'll be the order basically. Whichever comes back with the result first.
Yeah. So let's try this. I wonder if I could async, and then await this. So now it'll await the Axios, right? And if if
you await it, it's gonna block though. I think awaiting.
Yeah, it will block anything else from running. So like, let's say I had because you were talking about like having a second Axios call below here. Now I got it wrapped in a function. Let's say I did another like Axios dot get, and I went to some URL.
Yeah, you do this if you need some of the data from the first Axios call. Let's say.
And I could await this one too. And when you do the async await like this, it will literally run in order. So it'll get to this one, and it will not touch this one until this one resolves.
Correct.
Then it'll go to this one, and you can chain those down as many times as you want. So if you wanted to literally run asynchronously in order all the way through a function, even in use effect, you could just wrap it like this in a separate function and just invoke it right outside. So that's one way to do it. So that's some URL that's going to bomb if I leave that in there. But that's how you do it. That's how you like eliminate the thunk part of it, is you just do it this way with the multiple dispatches, because that's the common denominator. Before, we couldn't call multiple dispatches in a component. It wouldn't let us. We had to use the thunk to be able to use multiple dispatches. And even if we like, this app doesn't use thunk, but in order to dispatch, I actually had to write a function that returned an object, and I had to bring that in through the through dispatch that way into the bottom of the connect function. Now you don't even need that.
Yeah. Would it make sense to still have action creators though?
I haven't found a reason for them, to be honest. I've done it this way, like I've left them in there with like thunk and everything done, and when I've called my dispatch, instead of dispatching the object, I've literally called my action creator and sent it to input inside that dispatch hook, just to keep everything tied in with Redux. But it's I actually talked to Dustin about that yesterday morning in our staff meeting, and he said it's kind of redundant, and I was like, yeah, I even made the example. I go, yeah, but I did a use effect hook, and then my actions file, all that's left in there is just a string. And he showed me the app that he was building as a side project, and it looked identical. The actions file just had nothing but these strings in it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you went into the component, it was using use effect just like this to asynchronously make his different calls.
Now, if we put this in a function, let's call it a yeah, it could be actually an action. Can't we not wrap this in an action creator function? This whole stuff that's used by use effect, and then the use effect would call that. Wouldn't that work?
Wrap all this in an action creator?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to see the purpose behind it.
I mean, reusability. I mean, because I mean, I can see that fetching the data, calling the loading, fetching data, turning off the loading screen. Right. This is something that you might do a few places in the app. So.
Yeah, I can see the loading. I don't know if you'd make this GET request multiple times in different places in the app. That's where I mean, I see where your argument is as far as making this action creator function just reusable, so you can bring it into multiple spots.
Yeah, let's say you have a button somewhere that explicitly refreshes, and then you also want to use it in the on the first load. You want to refresh, and maybe every time you I don't know, let's say you add a new element or something, and then that explicitly calls again a reload of all the items or something like that, So
yeah,
maybe.
yeah, you could definitely do that. At that point, you would keep your action creator in a separate folder, and let's say like we'll call just a bogus import. I'll comment it out so it doesn't break anything. So like you'd import, I don't know,
Actions.
yeah, some action from wherever. And then let's say you wanted to call that in use effect at that point. And this was like, this whole thing was your action creator to do fetch. Well, at that point, you would just use that dispatch hook, and you would dispatch. Because dispatch is what connects it to Redux, and you would dispatch some action.
So what parameters does that take? Just a let's see. Maybe if you hover over that, because over the dispatch, see what the parameters. No,
some actions not
area.
defined.
No,
it's because it's not defined. Let me just ditch that. Now you can see it. Okay,
so action, any. So it takes an action parameter. All right.
Yep, an action, which if you think about the action, what it returns at the end of it is an object that's got type and payload most of the time. So you can return that right out of here, skip the function, or you can put that function in here, even with parameters. So like, let's say I needed something for the payload for that. Like, I don't know, it was a, it's like, especially if it was a GET request, some like this was some function, and I needed to pass it like I don't know, response data or something like that, or whatever I might be having to pass as a parameter if my action creator needed that parameter. Like for the remove feature, it needs like the ID to know what it is.
Yeah.
So you can pass that right in when you type that in. You just wrap it with the dispatch, and when you wrap it with the dispatch, that's what connects it to the Redux.
So it accepts an action, but can it be a function action
Yep.
in the thunk format? Yeah.
Yeah, it sure can.
Oh, okay, cool. That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, you can do it that way too, and then you can call it wherever you want.
So that's
Yeah, matter of fact, I did an app like that the other day. I think it was one of my Build Weeks apps because I was trying to get it to I built a React Native app, and I used Redux in it and stuff, and I used the thunks to make it asynchronously with a loading screen. I was like, I want to try and use the thunk with the hooks, and so I did that. Now your linter will yell at you when you put that in. It says dispatch doesn't work with functions, but it does because it resolves into the object. You can't just put any function in there. It's got to be a function that resolves to an object for the reducer. You know what I'm trying to say there?
Can we try that out, by the way? Can we write that out real quick? You're like, basically pass a function.
Yeah, let me find a
return as a
place
function inside that.
I'll do it right here in this. Let's go find one.
Yeah.
Let's see. Where was it? Was it this one? Yeah, this add feature right here. We'll do this. Here's my action creator. Add feature takes an input, right?
Mm-hmm.
We'll uncomment that. We'll go in here where that dispatch is. I got to import that in as well. So I need add feature. And
Right.
instead of the dispatch here where I'm sending in this object, I can literally just call add feature.
Right, but that returns an object though. It doesn't return a function.
It's returning through here.
Right. It's returning an object. I was thinking.
Let me pull up that other app because that's going to be out of the scope of this project. Trying to do it with thunk. Give me just a second here. Let me find one. I know what you're trying to say there because you wanted to actually show it the thunk in the action creator.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's eliminate thunk, but still be able to reuse those action creators.
Well, you can't eliminate thunk at that point because when you're calling the action creator, it's still going to go through the middleware. You get what I'm trying to say?
Mm-hmm. Okay. No, I'm not sure. That's what I'm trying to understand, I guess.
Let me find it here. Where did I put it? Was it this one? Should I find my right file?
We had actually it was the project on Thursday. No, on Wednesday. The Wednesday project.
The Wednesday project was. What was Wednesday's project?
Let me.
Oh, Wednesday was the build your own app. So they're all gonna be different.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Or the guided project, I guess, from Wednesday. That also used it. So.
What file did I put that in? How is that there? Where is it?
What are you looking for?
The project that I did where I ran that. I was just going to show you an example of it.
Oh, that'd be great.
I think this is it right here. Open with code. All right, this is a React Native project, so it's going to look a little funky as far as the file structure and stuff. But where did I run that at? Utilities, actions, user action. What makes this a thunk is this function accepting a function as a parameter and returning itself. In fact, this thing is yelling at me with the new linter. Okay, but this works, and you can see I'm exporting a login, and this is a thunk style function that's making an API call asynchronously. And how I invoke that is, where are we at in the app? And you can see here where I actually have to apply the middleware from Redux, and I have to put the thunk in there. Without this thunk, without that thunk, this action right here doesn't know what's happening here,
So
and it won't work properly.
So if we use the use what was it? The use dispatch hook. We can't abstract our actions. We can't bundle them up the way we were doing it with the thunks. We have.
Well, at that point, you don't need it. You know what I'm trying to say? So the only thing that thunk did for us was allow us to call this dispatch multiple times. You know what I'm trying to say? So now we can bring in a hook that does that, and we don't need this part of that thunk function because our dispatch is coming from that hook now.
Yeah, I hear you. So we don't need the thunk, but how do we prevent code repetition then? You know, what if you want to perform that certain thing, you know, multiple places in your app?
You would just basically write an action function without the thunk, without the dispatch. You know what I'm trying to say there?
I think, yeah. So I guess that's what I was trying to get to understand and maybe get an example of that.
Yeah, you would like right where we were at. Let's see, where was that other file at? I think it was this one. So yeah, you like kind of like how we have this function in here, where we just have a type and a payload. We would just write this almost like an async function, like an app when we wrote do fetch.
Yeah, but can I not encapsulate all of that stuff and sort of abstract that out, all of that code right there? That's
yeah, that's what I mean. You could bring this out, and like if you just copy this out, and let's throw it in add features. We had this as a separate function in here, right? And then you would just basically import this into wherever you wanted to call it, and like app.js and like use effect, let's say. And let's say then you wanted to call it somewhere else in here, you would bring it in there. But you do have to wrap it in dispatch to get it to tie to Redux.
Yeah, I'm still trying to see how that would be done, but yeah, I guess.
But yeah, that's what it does. I mean, like this do fetch function, like if we didn't want it here, we wanted to use do fetch 5 times across the app, we would put that in, we can call it an action creator, or you could have it as a you know, just a whatever, you know, file you want to put it in to export it out of it and bring it in multiple times. But in order to do the do fetch like that, when you're wrapping that, you would have to wrap it in the dispatch so it ties to Redux.
Yep.
All right, cool.
Sorry, actually, I gotta run for a bit. So thanks for that.
No worries, no problem. Anybody else got any questions? We're about done. I want to give you guys a little resource too, a little tidbit. Might brighten your day. I'm going to put this in the notepad channel, and I recommend you guys going to get it. It's basically, if you read the title of the, oh, is it going to stop? Oh, okay, don't give me the title there. But if you read the title on it, this is basically the replacement for Redux. This is no, you do not need Redux. And this is, her name's Cassidy. She goes by Cassidy on Twitter. She is formerly of the React training team. She's one of the people that helped create React Router that we use all the time. She now works for Netlify as a developer, but she does a really good, this is an hour-long video of how to use context with custom hooks and the use reducer hook to allow you to manipulate and manage global state just like Redux without the Redux pain. So I want to share that with you guys. I'm going to put it in our notepad channel. So if you guys are against the Redux train, no matter what, please watch this video. She's amazing. She's really good. And on that note, I will stop share. Let me make sure I saved everything here. I'm going to ditch this because that was like a little bit of an extra thingamajigger there. And that way, if you guys go looking for that, that should be current to that link. And you can use it as reference. But yeah, definitely check out that video. And